Welcome back to Cards and Comics, and today we've got an update from a card show just recently attended in Albany. I'll give you an update on kind of the pre-national pulse of the hobby there, as best exemplified by the Albany card show, which I'm not sure it's a great example of how the hobby is everywhere, but it's an example we can talk about. And I got a special guest today. I got my father. He's here visiting me from Texas. So say hello.
Hello.
And we bought a few boxes here at the card show. And one box here I had already. And we're going to open it today. But first, I'll give you kind of an update. And then these are the card show pickups we made. And just some observations from the show itself. First of all, the show was not very packed. Like in April, the last time I went, it took an hour to even get into the show. And this time we walked right in. We got there a little late, maybe like 9:45. And, there was no line. The show was, it was busy, but it wasn't overly busy. We talked to a few dealers and they said it was slow. Not a lot of money happening. And the one thing I really noticed was the dealers weren't offering to buy. So it's very interesting to me because if you're going to set up at the National, you would think they would be wanting to load up on inventory as much as possible. But a lot of the dealers just didn't have any interest in buying. And the other thing that was, very apparent was, selling, the only thing that people wanted to buy was really football and graded cards. So raw cards were tough to move because the valuations were hard for them to figure out. Like it was a lot of disagreements on what this card was worth when you try to deal with them. And then in general, without grading, PSA being around, the PSA slabs were at a premium. But I had probably about 100 plus vintage cards, and I sold 3. And 2 of them were in SGC holders, and the only reason why they sold was because they're cheaper. And so a lot of dealers were looking for cards under $100. But when you go to the show, the thing that was interesting to me is how many cards were priced at over $1,000 to like $10,000. Just a lot of cards that were priced in that range, and very few cards in the $200 to $400 range that were good cards. You could find a lot of modern rookie cards in that $200 to $400 cards, but no vintage cards, no, let's say greats, LeBron James type cards. It's just a really interesting dynamic, and I think that's what we're going to see at the National. Is one of the things I'm seeing is like cards from 2018 to now are just, it's like everywhere. It's almost like a plague. Like all you see is cards from 2018 to now. It's literally 80% of what I saw at the show. And when I looked at the Dallas show and other shows, it seems like cards from 2017 and beyond, or before that, aren't as popular. And so, or just they don't have that inventory because they started collecting at a later point. So a lot of the newer dealers, people just getting into the hobby, really focused on the last 2 or 3 years in terms of cards and players. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out in Chicago. Because I think you're going to see a lot of that inventory. You're going to see a lot of that people trying to move cards from the last 3 years, and you're going to see a lot of people wanting stuff that's not from those 3 years because there's so much of it. So we'll see. Vintage was interesting to me. I just had a hard time believing that vintage wasn't as hot. At this show, a lot of dealers had vintage, but it was all ungraded, and it was really low condition. And I saw one PSA 8 card of a Hall of Famer. It was a 64 Bob Gibson, and the only other really good vintage card we saw there was a Joe Namath rookie card in a 7.5. There was 2 Jordan rookie cards. One guy wanted $13,000 for a 7.5. Which was basically double what it's been selling, and the other guy wanted, right around VCP for SGC 8. So, he was priced right. But the other guy was priced just crazy, and one thing we also heard a lot was, well, 2 months ago this card was bringing X. 2 months ago this card was doing this. 2 months ago, and I think that mindset of two months ago was there at that show. I think one thing that's really important is, from January to now, or say January to, let's say, May, when the market was really hot, people were buying cards and dealers are buying cards, and the inventory they bought in that time period is now worth less. And some cards are going back up, but in general, a lot of those cards have gone down. And so how are they going to price them at the National? Are they going to continue to try to get their money out of those cards, or are they going to cut their losses and move it and move on to other inventory? That'd be really important to see, because I'm not sure some of these dealers can really afford to take a loss. and so they're going to maybe just hold out hope that the cards go back up. I think the All-Star game, we just watched the All-Star game and the Home Run Derby yesterday, and I don't think that really helped anyone, because you didn't, I think Pete Alonso is fine, but he's not probably going to have a great, overall year. He's, I think, doing okay, but, Ohtani didn't win it. Vlad Jr. hit a home run in the All-Star game. I think that's great. But it really didn't, I think, play out the way people thought, where you would have like Ohtani kind of hitting 40 home runs and winning the All-Star MVP and the Home Run Derby, and then you go to the National and there's this huge demand for Ohtani cards and Vlad Jr. cards, and it was just going to be all these 18 through 21 cards, and baseball were going to be super hot, and football was going to be massive. I see a ton of inventory in football too. I mean, tons of Prism cards were at that show too. So that's kind of the show update. I don't know, Dad, do you have any opinions on the show?
I thought the pricing was completely out of sight for the good cards, especially Jordan rookies, Jordan autographs, $45,000, $50,000. Completely out of the realm of even possibility. They'll never be able to sell those cards at that price, and maybe they didn't want to. Maybe they were waiting for the National. But as far as that show goes, no. I was really disappointed that there wasn't any, good older cards, especially graded. There just wasn't any there. So.
Yeah, I think, you have a lot of hopes going to a card show. You'll find something like, I need some Aaron cards for my sets and collection, and I need one Clemente card, and I think, maybe one of those cards will be there, and it wasn't even, there was nothing like that there. And it's really weird for me to go to a card show and there's not one PSA 7 or 8 Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, or Clemente card in the whole show. When you got 40 to 50 dealers all with inventory and a lot of it vintage, it just shows that either the inventory is gone, it was sold during the last 3 months and they haven't recovered it, or they just never had it. And I think the latter is probably more the truth than the former for some of these guys. So, we know the National. Me and my dad have been to the National a few times together, and I've been there a few times by myself. And you'll run into dealers that have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those kind of cards. Now, how will they price them is going to be really interesting, but that's a good thing about the National is you'll find those cards you want, especially if you're looking for vintage, because vintage typically is very strong there. But will you actually get good pricing? That'll be a question. And I think, that's what everyone's going to kind of be looking at, because, where everyone wants to kind of trade versus buying. So, So I think the show itself, as far as cards, we did get some cool cards. Every show you try to make hay for what you can. Sold more than we bought, so at the end of the day we came home with more money than we started with. But the first card that we picked up was this 33 Indian gun card, $40. I'm putting the set together, and this is just, I think, a cool set, I think, from the pre-war, and it's something you can afford to put together nowadays, and it's not really something that you see a lot. Like you'll see one or two cards at the show. So next up is this is a common. So this is a finest 97, I believe, finest or 96 finest Scottie Pippen refractor. I think these early 90s refractors are all cool. And me and my dad never collected basketball, so we never had cards like this. And I just think, like, all refractors from the 90s are collectible, any grade or any Hall of Famer. And I think football is really undervalued. I think the football cards, like Barry Sanders, compared to like Griffey and Jordan, is just really undervalued. But Pippen was kind of like a second or third tier kind of guy. But I think you still see a lot of people who like having players from that Bulls team, and so I think it's just for whatever it was, $10 or whatever. I think it was a kind of fun to find. Next up was a Jeter, and again, I think this is a 2000 Stadium Club Chrome refractor, and I think any of these early, even though this is not a 90s card, but it's still real close, and it's a refractor, and I think I've been a strong believer in refractors on Griffey and Jeter, Jordan from this time period, and I think again, for the price, $20-$30, it's got room to grow. So next up is the first kind of big card. This is a kind of a spec for me. I don't usually buy cards like this, but again, it's an early, it's a 2005 Topps insert from the 1952 Topps design. So it's numbered out of 299. And I believe there's different colors too, but this is, I think, the base. And so it's just these early LeBron James refractors, just like, Jordan, any Jordan refractor is, especially the earlier ones, are worth more money than the later ones. And this card itself is sold graded pretty high. Even an 8.5 sold, I think over $1,000. So, we'll see. I mean, I think LeBron cards are starting to go back up, the rookies especially. So I think cards like this will be really popular amongst the guys really putting together the harder to find and the numbered insert sets from that time period. So to me, it was kind of a fun spec play, especially there wasn't any vintage there to buy. So I kind of decided to kind of go in and do something like that to see if I could strike gold. I remember a couple years ago at the same Albany show, I traded a 2014 Mike Trout action variation, graded PSA 10, straight up for a PSA 9 LeBron James Chrome 03 rookie card. And if you compare the values today, it's a really, really good trade on my part, even though I ended up selling the LeBron James rookie card. But, that I think that's like a $500 card versus like a $5,000 card now. So I think, you can make some good trades if you kind of have some vision for what cards can go up to. So, but that's an example where, at that time, they were worth exactly the same. So, I made another trade like that at the show too. Next up this is from Base Topps, I think, from this year. It's the, trying to think what they call these cards, but they're from this year's Topps, and this is the on-card Mike Trout patch auto. I don't have these kind of cards. The Reverence autos. I don't actually have a Reverence of Trout, and so if you saw in my Trout video, I collect mostly Trout autos, and I try to have unique, one from every set I like. And this is one of those sets I really like. These are really high-end inserts. They remind me a lot of exquisite type cards. A lot of foil etching and just kind of a really cool design. So I don't have a Trout from this set. But I try to get an Allen and Ginter, an Allen Ginter X, a Finest card. Have kind of one Trout from each of those kind of sets. But I don't try to have every year. I just try to get one, and then once I get one, I kind of move on to a different set. Kind of a weird way to collect Trout, but it's kind of a way to have a lot of variation of his auto. And so this was kind of cool. This is, I thought for the price, patch auto on card. I mean, I think it was around $600 to $700. So I think that was to me a good pickup, and it was from the same dealer I picked up this next card. It was the Sapphire Shohei Ohtani rookie card. which I really, I had the Vlad Jr. So I saw you in one of my videos. I kind of mentioned I found my Vlad Jr. because I forgot I had it, the Sapphire Vlad, and now I've got the Otani. So I think it's cool. Love to get the Acuna at some point. With him being hurt, maybe it'll drop down to a point where you can afford it. I don't think it will, actually. I think it'll still be pretty expensive because I think people will just, there's not enough of it that card to drop too much, because I think the people who are invested in it will just keep it propped up. But, this card obviously isn't graded. So graded, that's where you're going to maximize your full value. But for me, having the Vlad, it's just kind of like having one or two awesome cards of one of these players, and not investing in like 50 cards. I'd just rather have one really good card and just kind of, ride it with this. And I think to me, right now, the consensus is that this is the best base card to have of a rookie right now. It's a Sapphire rookie. So, especially at the top. So I think, until something else comes along, I think this is kind of your best. I know it's kind of new. It just started kind of in 2018 with Acuna, that the Sapphire rookies have taken off as being kind of the best version of the Chrome and card. But I think it's been proven out with the Tatis, with the Vlad, with the Acuna, that this is the best version. I sold my Tatis. I had a PSA 10 Sapphire Tatis last year. I sold it. They just got so high last year, and I think it hasn't really gained back to what it was at the very high point. But at one point I had all of them. I had Tatis Jr., Vlad Jr., I have Otani. Actually, I didn't have the Acuna, but I had 3 of the 4 big ones. So, I think they are fun to have. So I think this is going to be kind of like my one big Otani card, and hopefully he doesn't get hurt. Because as soon as you buy cards like this, like just think about if you bought a huge Acuna card 2 weeks ago, and all of a sudden he rips his ACL. That's kind of the worst case scenario. And Otani, his biggest risk is injury. And the last card here was Connor McDavid, so hockey, which is odd for me, but the Young Guns. Now, he just won the MVP in NHL. And me and my dad used to collect hockey back in the day. But I traded a dual patch auto of Gretzky and Lemieux straight across for this. And that card was selling around $1,700. And, which is a little bit more than this card is bringing. They're pretty close. I just think this card has a lot of room to grow. If McDavid wins 2 or 3 more MVPs and they actually win a Stanley Cup, I just think this will be a $3,000 to $5,000 Young Gun, just like some of the other big Young Guns out there. So, to me, this card can get to $3,000. That patch Gretzky, card will never get that much more money because they just make them every year. They keep making the same card over and over, just with a different design. But there's nothing unique about it, and it's not like a card. It's just a cool card to have. But they'll never pop to $10,000, $15,000 like something like this. Theoretically, I think this card could be a $3,000 or $4,000 card eventually. So it's kind of like I made a trade, and hopefully it kind of ends up like a LeBron James trade where I trade a card similar value, and then the card I trade for goes up in more value. That's what you hope for. But to me, it's easier to speculate on a rookie that just won the MVP versus kind of like a Gretzky Lemieux auto, which there's a lot of cards like that, and they make more every year. So that's the cards. So, and then we bought these 2 boxes at the show, and so we'll go ahead and bust them. Do you have any choice on which one to go first, Dad? And do the 2019. All right. Mm-hmm. Do the 2019 first. So, as far as mail day go, I've had a few cards come in, but nothing big. I think the Diamond Star Lloyd Wayner was probably the biggest card I brought in recently.
Now, what is in this particular box?
I believe 19 is going to be Vlad Jr. Okay. But we shall see. So I think it's Alonzo and Vlad. So you can go first and see what you get.
Yeah, let's see. Cody Bellinger.
There you go. Just hand it to me. I'll show him. All-Star Bellinger. Chris Bryant All-Star. So these are obviously the update series. So Austin Meadows and Reggie Jackson refractor. Okay. All right. Got Corbin Martin. That's his rookie card. Josh Naylor, rookie. Nick Senzel, that's his rookie debut. And DJ LeMahieu. So some rookie cards in that one. And Dad got the Kikuchi, which I think he just came off the injured list.
Yeah.
Will Smith, Cal Quantrill, and Chris Paddock. And Chris Paddock's, I think he's a pretty good pitcher. I'm not sure if he's hurt this year or not. I haven't seen his name. Okay. Real Muto, Charlie Morton, the Rays, and Harold Ramirez rookie card, and a refractor Ripken. So heavy hitting, you would consider to be amazing at, and again, these were retail. So a DJ LeMahieu Yankees card, John Duplanter. Hey, there's Vlad Jr. There we go.
Really?
There we go. So that's the throwing, obviously. So that's not the no number, but still, it's cool to hit a update rookie card of Vlad Jr. So it's probably the best base card you're going to get in the whole set. So
what kind of value is on that card?
I don't know. I have to look it up. I'll put it in the when I edit the video, I'll add the price. I don't think it's a huge card, but it's definitely hopefully worth. Obviously, to get it graded, it's worth a lot more. Looks like you got Austin Riley.
Yeah.
So Sean Anderson, Austin Riley, who kind of had his moment in the sun, Nate Wow, and Edwin Encarnacion. Last pack. So we did hit the Vlad Jr., which is awesome. It's good just to hit something that you want out of packs like this, and it looks like there's another Vlad right behind it. So Michael Brantley, Trevor Story, Mike Yastrzemski, which is, he's a pretty good player. And then right behind it is a Vlad Guerrero Sr. So there's his dad, family business. So there we go. So that was pretty successful. We got the card that you would want to hit. So that's pretty awesome.